such that if the Maharlika Fund fails, and before I continue my question, there's no guarantee that it will be successful, correct?
There's no guarantee.
Yeah. Are we in a rush to pass this bill? That's a question.
Are you asking me?
Of course, yes.
Are we in a rush?
Protocol dictates that I direct it to the Senate President, but the sponsor is the one who is going to
I
answer.
can't really speak.
And I was staring to the sponsor to answer. I said,
No, I'm just saying because I can't speak for the whole Senate. Obviously, I can only speak for myself. Of course, I'd like to. I sponsored this bill. I'd like to see it passed, and I speak for myself.
Because I know there are provisions here that says bawal to enter into transactions, disadvantageous to the government. Talagang yung utak natin, punong-puno na, even every Filipino knows that phrase already, yung disadvantageous to the Filipino people. Is His Honor, has 5.5 years to go. In my, how many years na ba ako? 12 plus 3, 15. In my 16 years, the Blue Ribbon Committee is always so busy investigating these things. So I'm genuinely curious if this did not cross His Honor's mind. Is it not His Honor's... May concern ba tayong ganon? Kasi we know that this is a priority bill.
Yes.
And and the Senate does have a history of doing its best, at least the majority, of course, but the minority has always been as supportive as possible to support the administration's measures. So we take the lead from the sponsor. So I hope His Honor will understand that I need to ask this question because His Honor is the one who spent hours and hours studying, discussing. And me being the Senate's futures thinking, di naman expert, practitioner, parang takot na takot ako na ma-foresee na yung next order of business natin in a few years will be the investigation of, hindi naman sila ni-request, hindi naman sila ni-require, pero nag-volunteer sila, tapos ayan na yung mga initial sa mga papel. Yun lang naman, Your Honor, I want this to be on record kasi ang laki nung tinataya natin dito eh. And if I may just add one last point, ito nga yung mga GOCCs providing social security measures. And I will just speak for the health sector. Every year, Your Honor, 70 billion ang hinihingi na extra funding ng PhilHealth taon-taon. Every year, ang nabibigay lang natin sa kanila is maybe an extra 5B kasi hindi rin nila maayos-ayos yung kanilang mga finance and accounting. Hindi ko pa, I haven't, for the sake of this hearing, for the sake of this interpellation, I haven't really had the chance to look at how much of their funds are invested in other investment, but alam ko nga, may board of directors, pero those same board of directors were the ones who on their watch, hindi nababayaran yung mga ospital, magsasara yung mga private hospital dahil hindi nababayaran. So, and I'm not even attributing malice pa. I'm just saying na yun ang mga nangyayari under their watch. So,
yes, Your Honor. Well, if you're asking if I am naive to the government...
no, I'm not asking if you're naive. I'm just asking for your comfort level in this matter, Your Honor.
So, I would like to just state also for the record that I think if we're talking about the funds, I mean the security of these funds that will be that will be invested in Maharlika. In the bill, there are numerous controls in place that, in fact, in terms of controls, I think there's a lot of, relative to other organizations, there are a lot of controls. Of course, to start with, there's the advisory board who will be composed of the Treasury Department, of the DBM, the NEDA. Aside from that, there will be an external and internal auditor. There will also be 9 directors who will be chaired by the Secretary of Finance, who will be joined by representatives from the private sector, the Land Bank, the DBP. There will also be representatives from the MIC itself, from the organization. And there'll also be government oversight, congressional oversight group from the Senate, from the Congress. It will fall under the COA. It will also follow COA rules. They will also follow procurement rules, RA 9184. And there will be a risk management committee also. Yes, that will also be monitoring the Maharlika. So I guess in terms, if we're talking about the controls within the fund to protect the funds, the money that is put into the fund, I think that these concerns were well taken up in the law, and it's quite robust, I believe. My personal belief is I feel we always have to balance. You know, we can't. It's hard to constrain them also, but there are a lot of controls in place that will ensure the security and that these funds are being safeguarded and invested in a very wise fashion. Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm listening intently to His Honor's response, and I'm also looking at the bill itself. His Honor mentioned that there will be 3 independent directors from the private sector. In other words, these independent directors have nothing to do with the investments being made. No, it's not investments in corporations that they are involved in or related to. Is that correct? I know there's a definition of independent director, but is my definition more or less correct? Ito na, nakita ko na.
It's in the law, actually.
It's in the law. The
Yeah.
independent director shall not hold any business or financial interest in other relationship which could or could reasonably be perceived to materially interfere with his exercise of independent judgment in carrying out their responsibilities as director. Your Honor, I have a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
There are 9 members of the board. Let's say for the sake of discussion, 3 independent directors, or for that matter, 2 independent director and 1 regular director, 3 objected. Of course, they would be overruled, right? Kasi 9, no? 9. So if 9 are present, then only 3 objected, 3 out of 9. What are the chances that these decisions would be reviewed by Congress in a timely manner to allow the safeguarding of public funds? Are those deliberations immediately made public? Is there a degree
It's
of
mentioned in the bill that
confidentiality?
everything, yes.
If His Honor agrees that the principal purpose of existence of a GOCC providing for social services like PhilHealth is to provide for health, and yes, they are allowed under their own they are allowed to invest in funding, but they must do so prudently. Would it not be prudent on our part in Congress to not increase the exposure of the Filipino people such that if the Maharlika Fund fails, and before I continue my question, there's no guarantee that it will be successful, correct?
There's no guarantee.
Yes, okay. So let's not debate that, no, because we both know that with prudence, hopefully it does very well, right? But there is no guarantee. So if 125 billion pesos is already going to be invested there, would it not be an acceptable amount of prudence that the security, the GOCCs providing for the Filipino security, yung kanilang health security, yung kanilang home security, wag na lang din dumagdag pa doon para lang in case hindi siya naging successful, hindi na siya nadamay. Would that not be a prudent thing to do?
In the financial world, usually, in order to maximize the returns for any investment, you have a healthy mix of investments in any pool. You pool these investments together because statistically, there's less risk. So therefore, a fund such as GSIS or SSS, of course, a bulk of their funds will be invested in very safe securities, mostly T-bills. But at the same time, they're also mandated to maximize the funds. They have to beat inflation. They have to be, they're trying to beat inflation. so that the value of the money of those members don't go down. In order to do this, they want to achieve a rate of return that is higher than perhaps T-bills or the SAFE, which is backed up, which is a sovereign guarantee. But of course, in order to do that, you have to perhaps invest in other things like equities. While they don't guarantee a specific return, they do guarantee you have an upside. So part of their investment strategy will always include a pool for safe investments, and then they'll also have a pool for other investments, such as it can range from equities, perhaps other investments that they might see a higher return. But of course, we all know that this is a risk and return business. That's why we have specific people who deal with what the specific risk for each investment is. Now, we're not saying that they should invest in MIC. We're not requiring that they invest in MIC, but we're just saying that if, based on their studies, they see that it is profitable for them to invest in an equity, especially if it's an investment in our own country, then they can have that. Maybe it should be. There's nothing wrong with giving them that option, Your Honor. That's just, I guess, in terms of investment. Of course, the GSIS has very stringent rules when it comes to their investment, and the majority of their investments will always be in safe securities. But of course, in order to maximize the value for their members, they also want to diversify their portfolio into other things, including which is equities. And I'm saying that if they've invested some of their funds in funds such as the Global Infrastructure Fund that invest in infrastructure not in the Philippines, why would we not give them the opportunity to invest in a fund if it's doing well and if it's investing in our own country? I guess that's my point. I mean, that there's really, in their portfolio of investments, there'll really be a place for investments in equities and other instruments that would probably generate a higher yield. But of course, there's a little amount of risk, which is up to the board of directors to decide on their risk appetite, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor, for that. I'm a bit familiar. I was investing also since I was after college, so I'm familiar. And what we want the Filipino people to understand is there is such a thing as diversification of your investment, no? And depending on your risk appetite. Kung sabi nga nila, kung bata ka pa at marami ka pang kikitain, you can risk more. Pagka retirement age ka na, huwag ka na masyadong mag-risk kasi yung ability mo to earn is much less, and so what you then need would be regular income. Now that's the very simple explanation there. So gagamitin ko yon for the Philippine economy. There is already 125 billion at least initially going to be invested by Philippine institutions in this corporation, and I am forwarding the proposal that maybe to give us more security such that, because there are risks involved, wag na natin talagang payagan na mag-invest pa yung mga social security, and that's a general term, no, social security GOCCs natin, para in the event na hindi kumita ito, in the event na malugi, hindi nga madamay yung pera ng nandun sa GSIS, yung pension ng ating mga government workers, yung SSS, pension ng ating mga private workers, and then yung pangbayad ng mga hospital bills ng ating mga Pilipino. Ikaiiyak ba nila kung naging super successful po ang Maharlika bill? Sasabihin ba ng board ng mga PhilHealth and GSIS, sayang hindi tayo sumama doon? Yes, maybe. Pero naman, ikaluluhod nila at ikamamatay naman nila kung malugi yon. Yun lang naman po yung sa akin. In terms of diversification of risk of the Filipino money, ang point ko is, wag na sanang masama yon dito sa pool na ilalagay dito. Kasi yun nga yung social security, kaya sila very conservative. I will put on record sa PhilHealth, ang investment nila sa specialty savings and deposits, nasa 75 billion. In fact, ang pera nila is nasa Land Bank and DBP. So for the record, yung pera ng PhilHealth na 75 billion, di kasama na yun sa mapupul na imalalagay. So tama ho ba ako? So pag pinayagan pa natin silang mag-invest dyan, in addition to this 75 billion, which is a part of the Land Bank funding, magdadagdag pa sila. Di sana wag na. Yun lang ang sa akin. Sana wag na.
I respect your opinion, Your Honor, and
But I hope
Okay.
His Honor would take a look at this. Does His Honor know these numbers? Itong specialty saving deposit ng PhilHealth, 75 billion is in Land Bank and DBP.
yes.